Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Adobe Live. My name is Anna McNaught, and I am your host today. And today I am joined by the one and only Aaron Nace, founder of Phlearn, my mentor and really good friend. Aaron, welcome. How are you today?
Anna, I'm doing awesome. I'm so excited for today. We're going to have so much fun.
Me too. I'm super excited. And I was just telling Aaron and Paco behind the scenes that I'm a bit under the weather today. My husband and I are both dealing with the flu. So luckily not COVID, but I may be a little bit quieter today. But, you know, I'm still here and I couldn't miss out on a great episode with Aaron and all of you in the chat. Welcome in Robert, Cody Bear, Marsha, let's see, Frank, Monica. Nice to see you all here. Thank you for joining us. I know that we have a great episode for you all today. And Aaron, as always, has some magic in store for us. I'm really excited to dive into Lightroom and maybe a little Photoshop either today or tomorrow. So Aaron, I'll let you take it away.
Okay, I am so excited about today's stream. We're going to be covering basically how to edit your photos more quickly, more efficiently in Lightroom. And we're going to be going over a lot of the new masking features that Lightroom has to offer as well. So if you guys haven't already upgraded to the latest version of Lightroom Classic, I highly recommend doing so. These masking features, in my opinion, are like the biggest, most powerful change that Lightroom has had in a long time. Think about a lot of the advanced masking that you can do in Photoshop that has been brought over to Lightroom. The workflow is a little bit different, but we've got 2 days to go over that. And by the end of it, you're going to be an absolute pro. Super exciting stuff. We have things like select subject and select sky. You can mix those things with your brush tools and linear and radial masking as well. So we're going to be going over a whole host of examples. So no matter what type of photography you're doing, whether it's portraits or landscapes or animals or industrial type photos, weddings, events, family images, even products, we're going to be going over all of that in this 2-day stream. So we've got a bunch of examples. I'm super excited. What do you say we just jump in?
That sounds so great. I'm super excited too. And just want to do one quick housekeeping thing before I forget. Be sure to check out the Photoshop Daily Creative Challenge every day with Voodoo Val at 9 a.m. Pacific. Make sure you check that out if you want to continue to increase your Photoshop skills. And then one other little thing, Aaron mentioned to me that he has a ton of amazing photos. So in the chat, if there's anything on here that you all see that you really want Aaron to work on, let us know in there, and then I will let him know so that you can maybe see something that you have going on for a client or a photo that you've been dying to work on, and he can help you out with that.
Yeah, definitely. Just like Anna mentioned, I've got a ton of different images that we're going to be working on. So I'm very happy to kind of jump around. And, you know, if you see an image and you're like, oh, I have something similar to like that, I have some problems that I'm working on, be sure to put that in the chat, because I'm totally happy to, you know, go back and forth and work on any of these images or series.
Perfect. Sounds great.
Cool. Well, let's jump right in. I am so excited. So we'll just make this library a little bit bigger, just so everyone here watching the broadcast has an idea of some of the images we've pulled together. So we've got some portraits, we've got, you know, group shots, family, you know, we've got some backlit stuff here, some natural light, some studio lit images as well. All kinds of different backgrounds. We've got a nice little series here, you know, just kind of like some family photos you might take on an outing. We've got an example with a family that we're going to be integrating with some graphics. That's going to be a combo between Lightroom and Photoshop. We've got some product stuff as well as landscapes. We also have some animals. And then of course we have some wedding images down here. I know a lot of us are thinking about or maybe have photographed weddings. So showing you some great tips and tricks on those. More portraits. We have some series of portraits here as well. So as you can see, we have a lot of different examples and I'm more than happy to cover anything that you guys want. This is all about you. So let's go ahead and scroll back up to the top. We're just going to start off with this image here, just to go over our develop module. So pretty much the majority of these 2 days are going to be in the develop module. We're going to show you how to edit those photos a little bit faster. So let's go ahead and click on the develop module. Now, whether you have used Lightroom Classic or not, that's totally okay because we're starting with the very basics here. So to start off with, let's go ahead and talk about our basic adjustment panel. You know, on the top, we have things like our white balance, being able to change our color temperature, make it warmer or cooler, more green or magenta. So let's just push and pull that. And you can see this is just very simple white balance adjustments. Now, if you're photographing raw images, which I highly recommend doing so, you can actually dial in your white balance right here. These are going to be JPEGs. I'm using stock images for this example, but with your raw photos, these temperature adjustments are going to be even more accurate. Now, of course, we have adjustments like our exposure, making this brighter or darker. You can see as I make changes here in Lightroom, all of my changes are registered here in my history panel. So everything we do is completely non-destructive. If you want to go back, simply just click right back in your history right there. Now, if we want to say target the highlights, maybe the highlights on our subject space are a little bit too bright, we're just going to take those highlights and drag them down a little bit. Maybe your shadows are a little bit too dark. You could grab your shadows and bring those up just a little bit. Okay, so here I'm able to just simply go back in history and then forward in history if I want to do that. I also have some tools down here for looking at my before and after. So if I always want to see like, hey, what are the changes that we've made throughout this process? I enjoy clicking on this little, it looks like two Y side by side. So you can see here's our before and after. So as you see right here, the only changes that I've made so far are adjusting my highlight values and my shadow values. And you can see with the before, my highlights are a little bit too bright, shadows are a little bit too dark. And here in the after, we were able to recover those and enhance them just a little bit. All right, we're gonna go ahead and just take a look at our white values, target a little bit more of your bright. So here you can see it's targeting the shirt, and then the blacks are targeting even more the darker areas. So we can bring those up a little bit. Fantastic. Now we have things like our texture, which is like small scale sharpening, clarity, which is more large scale sharpening. I tend to go pretty easy with those. Vibrance is going to really do a nice job enhancing color, but it's going to try to protect skin tones while that happens. And then our saturation just increases the color all around, which is going to include the reds. So when you're working with people, I recommend using vibrance as opposed to saturation. There we go. And of course, all this is completely non-destructive. I can change these things at any point in time and get back a little bit more of a balanced type image. Okay, so already I think that's looking pretty good. Now, up until this point, we've covered all of this stuff. I'm gonna bring my white balance a little bit warmer, just a tiny bit. We've covered all of this stuff here in our basic adjustment panel. Okay, and as you can see from the before and after, like pretty impressive, right? Just with our basic adjustments, we've done no masking at all. So from here, we're going to take everything that we've just done and everything that we've just learned in this basic adjustment panel, and we're going to move that into our masking dialogues. Now, the cool thing about masking in Lightroom, especially with these new updates, is that I have access to all of those individual features, what we just edited our image with. But with our masking dialog, I can tell it to only be visible in certain parts of our image. So this is where things get way more powerful. And we're gonna be covering this throughout the entire 2-day stream. So don't worry if it seems like a lot right now. By the end of it, you're gonna be a total pro. It's relatively simple. Let's go ahead and talk about it. So a couple of things that I want to do here with my image. Maybe I just want to draw like a little bit more attention to my subject. The image looks great overall, but maybe my subject could use a little bit more like punch, maybe a little bit more light, and maybe we can kind of darken her surroundings a little bit. After all, we don't necessarily need to be looking up here so much. I want pretty much to be looking at the subject. So let's go ahead and start off with a couple of our simple masks. So if you have the newest Lightroom, you'll see right above your basic tools. Let's go ahead and close that down so you can see we have our histogram here at the top, and then we have a few tools. So we have our crop tool. This is our spot removal, which is for healing and clone. We have some red eye correction, and then here we have our masking, this little circle here. And I gotta tell you, this is the most powerful thing Lightroom has done in a long, long time. So let's go ahead and click on that. Now, when we open this up, it asks us to add a new mask. And then we have all of these different options. And don't worry, we're gonna be covering all of these in our stream. So the coolest thing about these different options is that you can mix and match them in any way. So starting up at the top, we have select subject, which will actually use AI to find out where your subject is and select them. We have our select sky. We're going to be going over examples using both of these. Then we have our brush tool, which literally allows you to just paint in wherever you'd like to affect. We have a linear gradient, which is like a kind of a wipe from left to right, up to down, or you can do it at an angle. We have our radial gradient, which is kind of like a circle or an oval. And then we can actually select different color ranges and luminance ranges and depth ranges, including if your background is super shallow and out of focus. Okay, so we're starting off nice and simple. We're going to be going with a radial gradient to start with. Now, for those of you who've been using Lightroom Classic for the last few years, you'll see that both the brush, or all three of the brush, the linear gradient, and the radial gradient, all of these things have been included in Lightroom for some time. We just have a new way of applying these masking, okay? And a new mask dialog that comes up. So let's go ahead and start with our radial gradient. After all, I want to bring a little bit more attention to our subject. So let's go ahead and click on our radial gradient. Now, as soon as I click on the radial gradient, we got a couple things we want to cover. Okay, up here at the top, we have an option to feather our radial gradient. I didn't make it yet, so I'm just going to go ahead and click and drag out just like this. There we go. So this is going to start our radial gradient. Now I can still move this at any point in time. This is totally non-destructive, just like anything we do in Photoshop. Up here at the top, I have an option to invert it. Okay. And as you can see, this red overlay, this is what's actually going to wind up getting affected in our edit. Okay, so right now you're going to see it's going to wind up affecting the central part of my image. If I click on invert right here, there we go, you're going to see it's going to wind up affecting the edges of our image. Okay, then right underneath that, you have examples, all of these tools that we just used to edit our images, but you can see all of the sliders are back down to the central point. And what that means is this is basically giving us all of these different options, but now it's only going to affect the area where we have selected. So this is going to add on to all of the changes that we already made to the entire photo. So when thinking about your masking workflow, my suggestion is to start off with the general adjustments that you might want to make to your photo as a whole, and then go into your masking workflow to make some more fine-tuned adjustments to certain places. Okay, so we've brought in a radial gradient. I went ahead and made that gradient. We've inverted it, and then here I can change my feathering. There we go. You can see with less feathering, kind of just looks like a circle. A little bit more, gets softer and softer. And the more feathering you add, the more natural it's going to look. Fantastic. Now, up here at the top, we have this dialog, this mask dialog. This entire mask dialog here is brand new to Lightroom. So we're going to go over this and talk about it in great depth today. So now we have access to our mask. So let's go ahead and take a look at this. Mask 1. And as you can see, it actually looks very similar to the red overlay that's in our image. This is basically showing us And if you're familiar with masks in Photoshop, this is basically the same thing. So it's showing us where this is going to affect our image. The white part on the outside of the mask is where it's going to be visible. The dark part is where it's going to be invisible. Now we can see with our mask 1, it's being affected by a radial gradient. That makes sense. We just made a radial gradient. And from here, we can actually add or subtract from that radial gradient. And we're going to get into that in future examples. For right now, we're starting off a little bit more simple, and we're going to move on to more complex examples. Okay, and then here we have a show overlay feature. You can see if I turn that off, I don't see that red outline anymore. If I turn it back on, there you can see I have my red overlay. Now you can change the color. Let's say your image is red and you're having trouble seeing where you're actually going to be affecting. You can change the color of your overlay at any time, okay? And you can affect your opacity as well. I'm gonna just put it back to red because that's where it defaults, but just wanna give you a heads up, you can actually see, change that color. Now you can also hit O on your keyboard and that will turn your overlay off and on, okay? And if you ever wanna learn some keyboard shortcuts, there's some great ways to do that here in Lightroom. One thing that I like to do, let's say if I hover right down here at the very bottom where it says overlay mode, there we go. You can see overlay mode. And if you hover over that, it should bring up your keyboard shortcut. There we go. Let's go ahead and bring this down there. All right. It's not doing it right now. That might be because I'm doing a screen share. There we go. All right. Overlay. Well, it's doing it for the edit pins anyway. So you can see it says H for the edit pins and then it's O for the overlay. Okay. So the edit pins, these are these little outlines here. So you can see H will hide and show these. There we go. And then O will hide and show your overlay. There we go. So as you're working, if you just need to clear everything out to see what you're actually doing, there we go. I can hit H for my overlay and H for my pins and O for my overlay. And that's just gonna hide and show both of those so I can actually see what I'm doing. Okay, now we also have some options here for our overlay. I can click here on these little buttons right here, and I can see different types of overlays. So I could see my image on black if I wanted to. I could see white on black. This would look like a regular layer mask like you had in Photoshop. A lot of different options here. I generally just leave this on color overlay, and that looks really good. Okay, so I know we've gotten kind of technical with this, but the whole idea here is that we have basically a radial selection in our image that's going to affect where I actually can make my edits. So let's go ahead and start working through this. And as we go through this, it's going to start to make more and more sense. So I can see this red part, that's where we're going to wind up affecting. Let's go ahead and just bring my exposure down. And as soon as I hit my exposure tab, it's going to take away the red. There we go. Looking good. And it's going to allow me to actually see my changes. When I let go of that, I'm going to have my overlay back on. You can hit O for that on or off. Okay. So this now allows me to affect just the outer area of my photo. So by bringing that exposure down just a little bit, I'm basically bringing the viewer's eye more into my subject's face. So let's go ahead and create a new mask. Now, if I want to create a new mask, I can go right up here to where it says create new mask. Let's go ahead and click on that icon. We're just going to go with the radial gradient again. I'm going to click and drag out. There we go, something like that. And this time I'm just going to bring my exposure up just a tiny bit. Okay, so the whole goal with those two things, we're basically creating a vignette here. I'm making my background just a little bit darker, and I'm making my subject just a little bit brighter. I don't want to make her as bright as the example here on the left because her face was overexposed just a little bit. But by making our background darker and our subject a little bit lighter, now we're kind of drawing more of the viewer's eye to the subject. Now I can actually turn these masks off or on at any time. I have these little options right here, which will turn this off. So you can see there's the before and the after with just the masks that we put on. So you can see it's a huge, huge change to the image. All right, we're already looking really good. Another thing that I want to do, I want to take this green color. I want to target that green color and I want to make it a little bit more vibrant and maybe add a little bit more green to that color. So I'm going to go ahead and create another mask. Let's just click on that plus there. And I'm going to go right down here to where it says color range. So with my color range, there we go. Now I have this eyedropper tool and I'm just going to eyedrop right here on that green. There we go. And when I eyedrop on that green, you can see now it's actually selected that green. And again, it shows the same overlay of what's being affected. There we go. So let's go ahead and say here, I want to bring my tint down a little bit. I want to bring my temperature up a little bit. I just want to make that green a little bit more. I want to take some of the blue out of it. And I also want to increase the saturation of that just a little bit as well. So I think it's going to be a really nice play with color, that green. And then I want to take this jacket and put it a little bit more towards red. So we have some complementary colors to work with. Okay, now check this out. Remember when we look at our mask, okay, we have this show overlay option. And this red color, let's just change this red color so we can see, you know, what's being affected here. Let's change it to like a blue for right now. So you can see, yep, it's affecting all these leaves, but look at this, it's actually affecting some of our subject's skin as well. And I clicked on the green in the leaf and it did select the greens really, really well, but it also happened to select my subject's skin, which we don't want, right? Because what I wound up doing is bringing my color temperature up and my tint down, and I increased my saturation. And I don't necessarily want to do that to my subject's face. I really just wanted to select those leaves. All right, let's go ahead and take our mask overlay. We'll put it back to red. I just want to make sure you guys can see that. So what do you do when that happens? Well, now we have the ability to add or subtract from this mask. So let's go to subtract. I actually just want to subtract there. We're not going to use select subject just yet. We're going to save that. I'm going to just use our brush tool. So let's go ahead and click on the brush. Now with the brush tool, I can simply paint over my subject's face. Look at this. I'm painting over my subject and it's subtracting this area. Let's just bring our flow up. It's subtracting this area. I'm going to go ahead and do the rest of my subject as well from this mask now. So just like in Photoshop, where you have the ability to change a mask at any time, now we can do that in Lightroom. Isn't this amazing, Anna?
It's so cool. I love this. And I didn't know anything about changing the color of your overlay. That was so cool because it's much easier to see this particular example when you changed it to blue. And then just obviously like being able to brush the areas you don't want. Like such pro Lightroom tips. I love it.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it can really help because sometimes, like, especially with the skin color, like it was kind of difficult to see when it was like red on red, but just changing this overlay color can be super helpful. And then sometimes I'll just go like a white on black mask. And then that's like very easy to tell. You can just kind of paint it in here as well. So, you know, you don't have to use these options here, but they're there for you to change like as you're working. I find that helps out. Like if you can't see what you're doing with the typical mask overlay, then it's a good time to change it. And I'll just be changing it back to the red after I make those changes, just because that's the default and I want to make that familiar to everyone who's watching. But as I turn this mask overlay off now, you can see, again, I can make these adjustments here and it's affecting those greens, looking really, really good. But now I can make sure that my subject is not being affected at all. How cool is that?
Amazing. It looks so good too. I love the style.
I love these tools. It's honestly like a total game changer. Okay, so we just talked about our complementary colors. You know, red and green look really good together and we're almost there. Like we have this orange and now we have more of a vibrant green. Let's go ahead and add one more mask. We're going to go to our color range once again. So right over here, color range. And now I've got my eyedropper. I'm going to click on orange. Now, the other cool thing is I have this little range icon right here. Okay, so I can actually change this and it's going to increase or decrease what actually gets selected. And this is going to be my overlay. So let's just change this to blue so you can see what is actually being affected. So as I decrease my range here, you can see less and less is going to get affected. And as I increase my range, more of my image gets affected. Okay. I can also hold the Shift key down and I can click on different areas in my image, and that adds to my color selections. There we go. I can hold Alt or Option, and that's going to minus out those areas from my selection. There we go. Cool. That's looking really good. So at this point, let's just turn our mask overlay back to red. Okay, let's bring that down. And now I'll just turn the overlay off. I want to adjust my hue so it's a little bit more of a red color. Okay, so I was able to target that color, and now we're able to bring it a little bit closer to red. There we go. We don't want to go too far. All right, and I can bring up my saturation with that as well. So just these subtle color adjustments. And now we're able to have a little bit more of a red color with that green color. Let's just bring that just a little bit in there. Tough balance starts to push to magenta real quick. There we go. I think that looks pretty good. Anna, you're super good with colors. How do you feel about this? Would you adjust the green or the red?
I don't know. I'm really loving it. Like, I love the contrast. And I was just thinking, I just finished the White Lotus the other day, and it reminds me of that color palette. I don't know if you've seen it, but it has like the same kind of vibe.
Cool. I haven't seen it yet. It's on my list.
I recommend it. Yeah, it was good. The ending was a bit weird, or kind of not weird, just like mellow, too mellow for me. I like kind of a very dramatic ending to things, but this color palette is really giving me those vibes. So nice.
Yeah, I feel it too. I think the green is like pretty good, but let's say we want to make some changes. Let's say we want to do a subtle adjustment on that green. Well, I can actually click right back here on this mask, because remember, this is the mask that I use to affect my greens, right? And I can go in here and still change that at any point in time. How cool is that? So I'm able to affect different areas of my photos and then bring them in. Not only that, but if I want to double click right here on where it says mask 3, I can actually give that a name. So let's just call this leaves, hit enter. I'm going to mask 4. We're going to call this clothing, and I'm going to say red. Okay. And we have our subject. And then this one, we're just going to call background. So just like in Photoshop, you can name these masks. And I think about these new masking tools kind of like adjustment layers in Photoshop, because you can have all of these different masks and they work together with each other. So all of these tools, it just really changes Lightroom for me. Now, as you see, we have our history here on the left-hand side. Don't forget, everything we've done is completely non-destructive. So I can go back in time. If I want to go all the way back to some of my original adjustments, I can do that and kind of step through these, no problem. I can go all the way back up here to the very top. There we go. I can turn on and off just the adjustments I've made with my mask. So you can see, here's the...
That's cool.
Isn't that amazing? So just these masks, turning these off and on. Now, the cool thing is, I made a lot of adjustments to this image before we even went into the mask dialog, right? Like we adjusted the highlights and the shadows and a little bit of the saturation, some vibrance. Now, with these masks turned back on, you can see just how much we're able to get out of our photo, and this before and after. I mean, this is stuff that traditionally I would be going into Photoshop to do these changes, but now Lightroom has so much power. It's really becoming like the one-stop shop.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead. There's one thing that we didn't cover that I really want to. There's a little question mark icon right up here next to the mask dialog, and this is our masking help. I find this super duper helpful because all the time we get the questions like, where are the keyboard shortcuts? How can I learn to use these a little bit better? And I really appreciate that all of these keyboard shortcuts are built into this little question mark. And there are some tutorials here that you can pop out and watch these for some help on masking. I think this is a really nice dialogue, and I'm glad to see it added to the masking dialogue.
Yeah, that's super helpful.
There
There's
we go.
so many little things that you're showing today that I didn't even know existed. Like I didn't know you could turn your masks on and off. I didn't know the keyboard shortcuts were right there. I didn't know about the overlay. My mind's like, woo.
It's so nice. Yeah, I'm like definitely still learning the keyboard shortcuts. But you can also see with your tools, you have some keyboard shortcuts listed here as well. So if you go to tools, you can see create new mask, brush, linear gradient, radial gradient. So as you become a power user, you can start using your keyboard shortcuts here, and then you don't even have to go clicking around. And here you can see your tool overlay. There we go. Auto show, always show, and then show selected, the crop guide, and then the mask overlay. So all of these options are here in your tools dialog as well, just in case you need them. Fantastic.
So cool.
This is so fun. So do we have any questions from the chat? Because we are at a really good place.
Nothing as of now. People are liking the way it's looking. Let us know in the chat if you have any questions for Aaron on this photo or on any of the process that he's working on. And I guess we can move on to the next one.
Amazing. Cool. So we're just going to close out that masking dialog. And then, something that if you guys want to add some color grading to your image at the very end, you can do that here right in your color grading section. If you want to add some like sharpening, you can do that as well. Some noise reduction. So all of these features are still available to you with your edit, but we just have these masking features in addition. So let's go ahead. I
actually have a question for you.
Oh yeah, please.
Do you ever use your HSL color, or are you mostly controlling the color through like temperature?
I definitely use my HSL color for sure. So HSL, this is kind of a cool dialog here because hue, saturation, luminance. You can actually click on where it says color right here and work with your individual colors, which is kind of fun. Or you can click right here where it says HSL. And by default, it might be on hue where you can only see hue. But I like to go to all so I can see my hue, saturation, and luminance. And then this little button here is like my favorite tool within these. This actually allows you to just click on it because sometimes you're not sure like, what a color might be. So I can just click on this. I'm in my hue sliders, click on this little icon, and then I can just click and drag over top of these greens, and it's automatically going to adjust the color that's associated with those.
Wow.
There we go. And I think that actually helped. So thank you for that suggestion. That was really cool. And as you can see, it actually moved my yellow slider by +4, and it moved my green slider by +7 when I did that. So it found out that I had some yellow and some green, and it shifted the hue of both of those at the same time. So definitely use these tools. And I think that's just so much fun with these tools that have been added they're not a replacement for all the additional, like the HSL, vibrant, saturation. They're just an addition to these tools, and they all work together really well. So you don't have to replace your old workflow. You can just kind of add this.
And were you dragging directly on the image to get those colors to change? Definitely.
Okay. Like if I go to saturation, I can click on this little icon right here. There we go. You can see it's highlighted now. And then I just click on this color and drag up, and look at that. The saturation of those reds goes up. And if I drag down, the saturation goes down. The only thing with this is it's targeting all of the reds in my image, right? So I don't have any masking right now with this. You can see it's going to affect our subject's skin tones as well. So if you want to just affect all of a certain color range, this is a really great way to do it. But if you wanted to mask to only affect a certain like reds, for instance, then that's when I would bring in the masking for sure.
Cool. Yeah, it looks so much more lively. Like it just has such richness to it now.
It's so fun. Yeah. And obviously everyone's style for editing is going to be super different. So, as you learn these tools, just think about how you might be able to apply them to what you want to do with your images. All right. So we're moving on to our next image here. Now, this is something we see all the time. The image looks great. Our subjects are exposed really well, But the background, the sky, we know the sky didn't look like that on that day, right? It wasn't a white sky, right? It was a blue sky, most likely. But because of the exposure difference, the sky is way too bright. So we now have a way to target that sky and then make adjustments with that target. So let's go to our develop module here. All right, where I'm just going to turn off my before and after real quick so we can just see a larger image. There we go. Before and after. Fantastic. Let's go ahead and see if we can target just this sky. Now, for those of you who's used Lightroom in the past, basically you would have to use the brush tool to kind of try to draw in the sky. Well, now I can simply go to my masking. Let's go ahead and close up all of our dialog boxes, make things nice and simple. I'm going to go to my new masking option here, and we're just going to go to select sky. Boom. And just like that,
Boom.
The sky is selected.
So good. I can't get over it. Like, look at around the palm trees. It's so good.
Look at that. Yeah, it's nuts.
My
Thank
God,
you.
it's so good.
Yeah. I only have 2 words for Adobe, and that's thank you.
Yep, exactly. And the hair, yeah, it's so
yeah, it's honestly better than you could do with the brush tool. If I spent 20 minutes with the brush tool, I couldn't get this good a result. No way.
No, even like 20 hours.
So let's go ahead and take a look at this mask. I'm going to go where it says this mask overlay. We're just going to go to white on black. And there you can see this is our mask. Now you can see it's pretty good. Is it perfect? No, because it did include a little bit of our subject. And if that becomes a problem, we can always subtract with our brush tool as well. So keep in mind that if a mask isn't perfect, you can edit it at any time. But from just one click, I gotta say, really, really good, super impressed. So let's go back to our color overlay. And now let's see what kind of things we wanna do with our sky. Well, maybe I just want to, I'm gonna hit O for overlay so I can just see only my image. I'm gonna bring our color temperature. We're just gonna go down blue a little bit. So I'm gonna just push that towards blue. And then maybe just bring our highlights down just a little bit as well. Maybe bring our exposure down. There we go. We'll bring our contrast up a little bit. Fantastic. And we're bringing my tint down a little bit because it looks like it needs just a little bit of green in there as well. What do you think, Anna?
I think it's looking awesome.
It's already great, right? Like,
yeah.
There's really not much else I need to do. Now, of course, you can like go crazy with it and get like a super blue sky or whatever. But I want to keep things like looking relatively realistic. But already right off the bat, I got to say like, whoa, this is like legit. Let's just take a look at the before and the after here. There we go.
I feel like you could also even make it a little warmer because it looks like it's maybe shot at sunset or.
Oh, I agree. So let's go back to our mask. So maybe not so blue. What do you think?
Yeah. And looking at the lighting that's hitting their faces, it definitely looks like the sun is low on the horizon and very kind of far off, you know?
Yes. Oh, nice attention to detail. I am totally digging that. Yeah.
Also, John wants to know how you zoom in on one portion of the photo.
Oh, so that's a great question. John, I'm just simply clicking on the photo and I'm just using the trackpad on my laptop right now. So I don't have any special tools at all. I don't even have a mouse. I'm literally just trackpad editing today. The reason I can see the kind of the before and after here is I'm using these tools right down here in the bottom. So here we have just our regular loop view. Here we have our reference view, and here we have our before and after. So if I go back to my loop view, this is the same thing as just clicking on part of my image and zooming in. There we go. And when I have my before and after view, then I can click and I can see what my image looks like before and after. So I've got on the left-hand side, my before, and on the right-hand side, my after. And you can switch these and you can even do like a top to bottom view if you'd like for before and after. I usually work on a left to right before and after, but you can switch these. Now I'm in my just regular, editing tools right now. If I want to get back to my masks, I simply click right here and I've got my masks and I can click back on my mask and then check this out. I think this is much easier to get back to your adjustments as the previous versions of Lightroom, where you had to find your editing pins and then click on those. Did you feel that too, Anna?
Absolutely. That was always such a pain, especially if you got really deep into the edit and you had all these tiny details, like you're adjusting eye color or like skin details or clothing. And then you're like, where is this little pin? I can't find it. Because I would have at times like 25 pins on my photo.
Me too. I feel that for sure. Yeah. And now we just have a list of masks as our layers that we can turn them off and on at any time too. So I think it's much easier to access these.
So much easier.
So let's go ahead and talk about, we're going to pop out of this mask real quick. Let's just look at our loop view and then go back into the mask. So we're just going to take a look, just like what we showed earlier, the white on black, and let's just turn our overlay back on. So we took a look at this earlier, you know, saying, by the way, when you're in your mask view, by the way, so I'm in my mask view. This is highlighted. You can see I'm on my mask. If I click on my image, it's not going to zoom in and out. Okay. If I go back out of my mask view and click on my image, that's going to allow me to zoom in and out. So if you get into your mask view and you're like, oh, why can't I zoom in and out by clicking on it? You can still hold Control or Command and hit plus or minus, and you can hold spacebar and still pan around your image. Okay. So you can still work here by hitting Control plus or minus and then spacebar and then pan around. So don't feel like you're restricted to one view when you're in your mask view, just because you don't have your default to the magnifying glass tool. So let's go back to this mask here. I'm going to click on Show Overlay, or remember the keyboard shortcut is O for Show Overlay. And now maybe I want to subtract this. And honestly, I wasn't bothered by how it looked, but if you want to clean up your mask a little bit, you can totally do that. So we're going to go and subtract something from this mask. So right now we have our sky. I have the option to add to my sky or subtract from the sky. So let's go ahead and click on this subtract. And I'm just going to go right here to brush. There we go. And now check this out. I'm going to just bring my flow up and my feathering down. And here I can just simply paint and subtract from my mask, just like I would in Photoshop. I'm going to use my open and close brackets here on my keyboard. That's going to make my brush larger and smaller. Okay. This is the fast way to work when you're wanting to paint some masks here in Lightroom or in Photoshop. If you want a hard edge, I just like to use my open and close brackets. See right now, if I try to do this, you're going to see it's kind of hard for me to make that nice hard edge, right? I'm going to hit Control or Command Z to undo. I'm just going to make my brush nice and small. Go ahead and paint this edge in right there. There we go. Fantastic. Make my brush a little bit bigger. Then I can hold Alt or Option, and I can come back here and clean this up a little bit too. There we go. So we're just going to go ahead and clean our mask up a little bit. And really, you only need to do this if your results are not looking that good. I actually wasn't that bothered by the results, but I do want to show you guys how to do this, just in case you need to go in and edit your mask and make it a little bit better. You can do this at any time. So the select sky looks like a really, really good starting place. And now we can just go in and update that just a little bit, just where we need to. There we go. We'll do the hand. Fantastic. There we go. And I'm going to hold Alt or Option and minus out wherever I made a mistake. So I can click on O for overlay again. Let's just go ahead and zoom out. And here we can see pretty amazing.
Perfect.
All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at our before and after. And here we can see we just completely recolored that sky. And we can change that color at any time as well. Nice. Do we have any questions from the chat?
Let's see. Nothing right now. I think you're good.
Cool. That means we're doing great. Everyone's on board. Nice. Well, I'm pretty happy with this example so far. So what do you say we move on to our next one?
Sounds good.
All right. So let's go to our next example here. Now, Anna, what's the issue that you see with this image?
Definitely the sky being blown out again, and the highlights on the side of their faces.
Sky being blown out. And then what about their skin color? Does it look natural to you?
It does look really like reddish. It looks a bit too warm.
It looks really red, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the first thing that stood out to me. So let's go ahead and take care of that. Sky, work on those highlights, and definitely their skin tone. So we're just going to start with our develop module. I'm going to see if I can recover some of the sky. So I'm going to bring my whites down a little bit. There we go, to bring back a little bit more highlight detail if I can. There we go. Now, sometimes if your sky is like very much blown out, like there's almost no information here, we might want to select that by color range instead of select sky and work on that. So we can go ahead and try that. But for now, I want to go ahead and get these skin tones taken care of. And we can do that with select subject. So we're going to go back to our masking. And for the first time, we're going to click on select subject. So let's go ahead and click there. You're going to see it's calculating, and look at that.
Boom. Perfect.
Amazing. So we'll just
so good.
Put our overlay right back to the color overlay, just like it was before. Now, at this point, we're looking pretty good, right? But I want to just affect the skin tones within that, right? Because like, let's say if I just bring down my saturation here, it's going to bring down the saturation of just all of my subjects, right? So I actually want to affect the reds that are in the select subject. So for that, would that be an add? No, that's not going to be an add because we've already selected our subjects, right? So if we add this color to it, it's not going to change the mask because it's already there. Now, our other option here is subtract. Now, if we subtract the red, then that means we're going to be working on everything except the red. So what we'll actually want to do is called an intersect. Okay, so an intersect, right now it doesn't give us the option of intersect. I only see add and subtract. So we just go right here to where it says the mask and these little 3 dots next to it. And then you can see intersect mask with. So that's where the intersect is hidden. And we're just going to, I know, right? So we're going to go to color range. So now I'm going to click on the color range and look at that. I've clicked on my subject's color range and you can see, let's go ahead and change this mask to white on black. Now look at our mask.
Wow. Oh my God. I had no idea you could do that. That's huge.
How amazing, right? And I can change the refinement of the color range with that intersect. So we've got we've selected our subjects first, and then we've selected a specific color range within our subjects. And I can refine that. So this is such an amazing tool because we have 2 advanced selections working with each other. Now, let's say I just want to bring down my saturation a little bit. Oh my gosh, look at that. Look, if I bring down the saturation all the way, of course we don't want to do this, but it's just a good example to see it's not affecting the subject's jacket. It's not affecting the yellow shirt. It's not affecting the green here. It's literally just affecting those red skin tones of my subjects. Let's just bring the hue like a tiny bit. Let's just go to like 0.3, 0.4. How's that? Are we looking natural? What do you think, Anna?
That looks much better. Let's see the before and after.
Let's see the before and after. Let's go ahead and click here and then zoom in.
Oh yeah. Wow. Look at that.
Look at that. And this is stuff, again, before these advancements, this is, we would have to be going into Photoshop to make these changes, and it would have taken a while to do that. But now we're able to target just our subjects and then get that skin tone and fix it with just a couple of clicks.
Wow. So good.
It's really cool, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm super stoked on these new tools.
I know. I love that. What was it called? Intersect?
Intersect. Yeah. Crazy,
Intersect.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've got add and subtract here, but intersect is when you want to find like the difference between two selections. Like if you had like two circles, you know, the intersect would be the space that existed between the two circles, like in a Venn diagram.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so helpful because I feel like even in Photoshop, if you try to do that, you're kind of like using one adjustment layer and then another and then layer masking that one out, and it gets so convoluted. And this is just so easy and nice. And like that took you what, like less than 5 minutes?
Yeah, definitely. And that's including like talking through it too. So if you were to do it on your own, it'd be much less time.
Yeah, exactly.
And then here you can still see like all of these different, select subjects and then select color range. As you hover over them, it shows you exactly what's included and then your mask as well. So just some incredible tools. Now let's try this select sky. I'm going to go ahead and turn on a new one. So we're going to go ahead and create a new mask. We'll try select sky and see how it does. Pretty good. I got to say, pretty good to start with. Let's go ahead and turn off that overlay. And let's see about just adding a little bit more blue and just making it a little bit more warm. Let's see if I zoom out. That gives us at least a little bit of a sky back there. What do you think?
Yeah, much better. Sorry, I had to take a drink of water there. That looks much better. And it just gives like a subtle glow hint. Like now you can tell they're on the beach and not just fully blown out.
Definitely. All right, let's go ahead and pop out of that mask dialog and then take a look at our before and after. I'm going to hit tab, which just removes my sidebars real quick so we can see that before and after. Just to see the power of these tools. And as you said, that really didn't take much time at all. But, being able to make those selections, selecting our subjects, then intersecting that with their skin color, and then selecting sky and just changing the color, that we've made a really big difference in a short period of time. So I'm super stoked.
Me
all
too.
Right. Well, we're moving on to our next. Isn't this so much fun? We've just got all these examples. It's like, and here's how we fix that one. And here's how we fix that one.
I love it.
I'm having so much fun. Okay. So this one is a little bit of the opposite because we have like a sun flare on the top right of this photo, right? Like the sun's coming from there. And what happens with the flare is that it's changing it changes the colors that the camera perceives, and it's changing skin tone. Like, look how desaturated and kind of flary my subject is over here. Versus this guy who actually looks like pretty normal. He's got, his skin color looks good. He's got a fair definition. The blacks look actually black. But this guy over here, as you can see, we just have a lot of flare. And what's happening, and this is such a cool example because it's happening only on part of the image. It's not happening to everyone in this photo. It's almost like we have a wipe or a gradient. And we actually have a lot of really amazing gradient tools to work with for these masking tools as well. But to start with, I want to go to our effects, and I want to look at, it's not in effects. I'm trying to find my Dehaze. Do you remember where Dehaze is?
Let's see, under.
Did they put it back in basic? Oh, here it is. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Dehaze. So this is kind of like when you see some effects like this where like your darks aren't as dark as they should be. This happens with lens flare. It happens with fog and haze and things like that, like on a polluted picture of a city or something like that, or if there's smoke in the air, whatever. So we're going to go to this Dehaze and see about just bringing this slider down a little bit. There we go, or up rather. And we're going to see that is actually working quite well. But it's kind of too much in some places, right? Like, I don't necessarily want to dehaze this guy on the left.
Right.
I want to more try to dehaze this. And so let's see if we can have the option to dehaze just this here area. I actually don't even... Dehaze. Oh, look at that. It is in our masks. I started this without actually knowing if Dehaze was in there or not. So I'm really glad it is. All right, let's go ahead and click and drag out a nice large mask. My overlay, we're gonna go back to a color overlay here. There we go. So this is the kind of the area we wanna add some dehaze. So we've made that selection here. Now I can just go right here to where it says dehaze, and I'm gonna click and drag that slider up, and look at that. Wow, that is super cool. Now the mask here, I wanna hit H. Let's say it's not big enough. You can actually just adjust this after the fact. Like I can grow, there we go. I can grow this, there we go. This radial gradient after making it. You know, this is something that is so useful. And there we go. This is like your center point there. But now as I bring up my dehaze, look at that. We're able to get such a big effect. So let's go ahead and we'll take a look at our before and after. There we go. I'm just going to move my side bar away real quick so we can see what we're doing. And I think that's looking good. But what happens now? Like, I think the children are looking great. I think she's looking great. But I think the guy still actually needs a little bit more dehaze on him.
Yeah.
Right? So yeah. What do? We already added a dehaze. Well, check it out. We can just add another one. So I'm going to hit this create mask. We're going to go to radial gradient again. I'm going to click and drag out on just the guy this time. And let's try some extra dehaze on him and see how that looks. Just a tiny bit. And then like, there we go. You know, I almost think like it should be just on his eyes. Those are the only parts that bothering me.
Yeah, I was almost wondering, what about like using a brush mask on just like his eyes and his nose? Like it's almost like right in this area.
That's a really, really good idea. So I have this mask and I'm like, okay, I don't need this mask. I click on these little ... right next to it. By the way, you can just turn it off or on with the eyeball, but I'm going to go to the ... and I'm just going to go to delete mask 2. All right. So let's go to a brush mask. That's a great idea. So we'll go to create new mask and we'll go to brush. There we go. Let's go ahead and brush in over top of the eyes. There we go. I'm going to bring in my feathering nice and big. Paint in over the eyes, maybe the eyebrows a little bit too.
Yeah.
And then the nose.
Like that one side of his nose. Yeah.
Yeah, there we go. Perfect. Let's go back here to our dehaze and then just pop that up a little bit. There we go. Bring in the whites a little bit. I think that's looking pretty good. Maybe
yeah, that's much darks, better.
We need to bring our blacks down like a little bit. There we go. All right, I'm gonna hit Command minus a couple times. I'm gonna hit H to remove the overlays there. And now, there we go. Let's just get out of there so we can see. I'm gonna hit Tab so we can see the before and after on those. So the goal here was to kind of get everyone to like a similar range in color, right? And exposure. And I think we've done a really nice job removing that haze. But one thing I'll say is like the color on the kids' faces looks actually pretty good, but I think there's just a little bit too much red on her, maybe a little bit too much red on him, and then a little bit too much red on this guy over here. All these ones in the middle, their skin tone looks really good. So let's go back into our edit dialog. We're just going to bring up our mask again, and we'll create a new mask. And this time we're going to go to color range. Now let's just go ahead and click on that color range. There we go. And I can change my refinement. So it'll only affect either more or less, depending on where I go with this. There we go. And then I'm going to hit O for overlay. And what do we want to do? We wanted to bring down the saturation just a little bit.
Yeah.
There we go. I think that's looking really good. And now, if I need to, I can click on subtract and go to my brush, and then I can just subtract out these kids in the middle where I thought their skin, you know, was already like pretty good. And I can adjust my hue a little bit here too. All right. Let's just go to my color range.
I love how like when you click on color range and then you refine it, it almost helps you see those areas that aren't quite color corrected yet. Like when you brought it down, it was just showing you grandma and grandpa on the sides there because you could see that that was really the area that needed to be fixed.
It's crazy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of allows you to see all that stuff together. Oh, I'm on my saturation. I'm meant to be on my hue. I'm like, why is that not working the way I want? And I'm just going to bring my hue up. Obviously, you don't want to go too far, but this will show you actually what's getting affected. But I can bring my hue up just a little bit, and it's going to bring us a little bit more towards their color. And as I bring up my range, there we go. And you can even type in a number here. So if it's too much and you don't like your sliders, we're going to type in like number 3 there. Fantastic. Let's go ahead and pop a new one. I'm going to go to select sky, and then we're just going to put some blue into that sky there as well. Why not? All right, cool. And let's go ahead and take a look at the before and after. I always like to look at these before and afters because sometimes you go in and make these changes and then you're like, maybe it didn't help it as much as I thought it did, or maybe you want to make some changes after the fact. But I think we're looking good. This is a little bit weird, this blue in the sky there, right?
Yeah, it's like maybe a little fake.
Yeah, it's a little fake looking.
I feel like they look a hair green too.
Like their skin?
Yeah.
Cool. Let's go ahead and change that. So let's go back to this color range and then pop this back down to 0. And then...
Yeah.
Is that better?
Yeah, I think so. Now I'm like, are my eyes playing tricks on me?
It's so tough, right? Like oftentimes, especially when I do any type of color work, I always like to get like a friend, you know, to give me their opinion on it too, because your eyes just kind of become used to looking at things, you know. It can be hard to tell if things are right or wrong after a while.
Yeah, I feel like I always have to take a break or walk away from it or get a friend, as you said. It can really mess with you. And then I mean, especially with compositing too, is, you know, you will be looking at it for so long and come back and then be like, that doesn't match at all.
What was I thinking?
Yeah.
I know, I've been there. Oftentimes what I like to do, my newest trick, especially with compositing and stuff, is I'll just get it to a point where I'm like, you know, think it looks pretty good. And then I'll send it to my phone because it looks way different on the phone usually than the big screen.
Right.
I see different things. And then I'll just like text it to a couple of my friends. You know, I'll text it to some people who are like more artistic, some of my photographer and artist friends. And then I'll just text it to some of my other friends too. And usually the feedback is like different between people and it's always super spot on.
Yeah.
I think when I first started like with, you know, creating art, I was really protective over it, especially during the process of creation. Like I didn't want anyone to see it until I was like done, you know?
Right.
And now I'll get it to the point where it's like 70, 80%, and then I'll send it to as many people as I can. And they help me get it to the place of completion. And it always turns out better because of it.
Yeah, that's such a great tip. And it takes a lot of your what's the word, like creative energy and I don't know exactly the word I'm searching for, but it takes a lot of mental willpower to be able to send it to people, to get constructive criticism and not take it in the wrong way, you know?
Definitely. And I pick and choose who those people are too.
Yep.
You know?
Exactly. Yeah. Like there's some people, you know, you're like, okay, yeah, that's fine. I can hear it from you. And then another person will say the exact same thing. And it's so offensive. You're like, how could you say that to me?
Definitely. And, you know, everyone's going to say something slightly different. Like I've got a friend who I send images to, and he's like, well, what's your message with this photo? Like, what are you trying to communicate? Like, what's the theme of it? And that always gets me thinking on like a much deeper level. And then I'll send it to a friend who's really good with color and they'll be like, oh, this and that, or maybe could be adjusted slightly. So it's nice to have like people who kind of look at art differently and they can kind of help you to look at your own art differently as well.
Definitely. I think we should add each other to our text chain of checking in on each other's art.
Deal. Let's do it.
Perfect.
Do it. Get like a WhatsApp group together or something. Yeah.
I know. That's actually a good idea.
I love it. I love it. Yeah. Us artists, you know, we need all the help we can get because we're all so good at different things. And those are the things that we tend to see in the art as well.
Totally. Steve asked if you color calibrate your monitor to stay on top of colors and skin tone and such.
That's a really good question. When I'm using like traditional monitors, especially as they're getting a little bit older, I definitely color calibrate those with an external device. Right now I'm just working on my laptop, and it's a fairly modern laptop. And so I tend to just use it as the colors come straight out of the laptop. But just like we touched on, I definitely will send it to different devices. I'll always send it to my phone, look at it on my phone, and send it to some other friends as well. So I try to look at it in like on a tablet, on a phone, and on a computer. I try to look at it on as many different devices as possible, because oftentimes, like, you know, let's say you have the perfect color calibrated machine, and like that's fantastic. You know, but we also want to be really aware of like what it's going to look like on people's phones, because at the end of the day, like a lot of images are viewed on the phone too. So I always just put that as a part of my workflow, and that helps me to see things. Also, there's something about like the small screen size of a phone that really helps out with my editing process, because I tend to see more of the image as a whole, like the big picture, rather than focus on the little details. So I really recommend, like, you know, just take a screenshot, message it yourself, AirDrop, whatever technology you use. That's helped me quite a bit in my creation process. Just don't take a photo of your screen, because that is not ever going to work well.
I know, that's always like, it throws me off so much. I'll do that to send it to some people real fast, be like, what do you think of this idea? And then I have to be like, don't pay attention to all the lines and the crazy colors showing up, you know? Like, just concept here.
Just concept. I use a Mac, and I find the AirDrop with a Mac is like the fastest, easiest thing to do. So if you guys use Macs, I'll usually, sometimes I won't even save it out. I'll just take a screenshot of it and then AirDrop that screenshot to my phone. And
that's a good idea.
It's super duper quick. On a Mac, it's Shift Command 4, and then you can just click and drag like where you want to do it right there. Boom. So I just took a screenshot, and I can bring this up right here. So that's my screenshot. And then look, I just have this little send option up here, and I can just go down to AirDrop, and then there's my phone. I just click on my phone, boop boop, and like now it's on my phone.
Wow, I didn't know you could do that. That's I mean, obviously I knew about AirDrop, but the little button in the corner, that was so fast.
Yeah, it's super quick. And you can do if you're just in like Finder, let's see, it's my desktop here, like for your desktop, that's a random picture. Here, let me do another screenshot here. I'll see it on my desktop. I had to get a new SIM card. That was a picture of a SIM card. There we go. Let's just wait till that saves onto the desktop. It just takes a second here. There we go. So you can do it directly from Finder as well. So if I just go to a new Finder window, go to my desktop, there we go. You can right click on anything in your Finder, and then just go down here where it says share, and then go to AirDrop there too. So I just go to AirDrop, click on my phone. There we go. And there we go. It's on the phone now.
Boom. Look at that. Easy peasy.
So anyways, just a super quick workflow that I do. And then from there, I can just text it to my friends, whatever. But
yeah, I love that.
Yeah. So getting back to our edit, really cool image. We've just got this orange in the background, all these orange pipes. And like, it's not that bothering, but I am kind of like looking back there. So my gut instinct would be to either do one of two things. Would be to change that orange to the red to match her hat, but then I still think it would be kind of distracting too. Or to target that orange and then just take the saturation down on that. So I just look, because almost everything else is grayscale in this. So I'm saying, let's go ahead and just target that. And then I'm going to hit D for my develop tab. And then how do we target this orange? So let's go to our masking tools again. And this time we're going to select a color range, right? Because I just need to select that orange. So let's go to color range here. And I'm going to click right here on this orange. There we go. You can see what's actually selected. Now, don't forget, you can hold down Shift and you get a little plus icon there. And I'll just click on like a couple different parts of this orange, right? Just to make sure like it really includes it all. And if you wind up selecting too much, like I just did, you can hit Controller Command Z, just like in any other program. There we go. Pretty cool. So I'm gonna hit O to remove the overlay, and then let's just try taking the saturation and bringing that all the way down. All right, and I'm gonna click my range and I'm gonna bring that up a little bit. You can see the range, let's just zoom into that. You can see like a little bit of that orange fringing still around those tubes there. So if it's not perfect, don't worry. All you gotta do is go to your color range here, and where it says refine, just drag that up. There we go. That's just going to include more. And then now you can see that fringing is gone there. Okay. That did wind up affecting my subject's skin. Okay. So let's see about select subject. So I'm going to go to subtract, and then we're going to go to select subject. Boom. How cool was that? Right?
Oh, I love it.
Amazing.
So good.
Let's take a look at the mask here. I'm just going to hover over the mask itself. Let's just change this to white on black. So this is what the mask looks like now. Wow. You can see it's primarily selected those bars. It did wind up selecting some other stuff, so you could change your range if you needed to there, but in this case, it didn't wind up making a difference. Our subject, and then the color range there as well. So let's go ahead and turn that overlay off. But that was so quick. I think that's quicker than I could do in Photoshop. I'm trying to think like how I would do that in Photoshop and be faster than that. Yeah. What I would do in Photoshop is create like a hue saturation adjustment layer, target those oranges, bring the saturation down, and then go in with the brush tool and adjust the mask to update the mask. But I think this was even faster because we were able to use the select subject.
I think so too. I feel like, yeah. I was trying to think about how I would do it too. I might select her first and then put a layer mask around. I'm trying to think, like, you know, it's always easier to do it in the program than in your head. But yeah, this was way faster. I mean, the fact that we have to think about how we would do it versus just knowing that you have a one-click button.
That's a really good point. Yeah, the fact that we're even having this discussion means that it's really easy to do here.
Yeah. A few people were asking about correcting teeth color. I don't know if you have like a portrait shot that maybe we could show that on.
Yeah, definitely. Let me just scroll through. We have so many great examples here.
Yeah, and let us know in the chat as Aaron scrolls through if there's anything that catches your eye that you want to see him work on.
I think like everyone, like, how could you imagine more perfect teeth than that?
I know, her teeth are perfect. We need one with like some coffee stains and
I know, right? Let's see. No, can't see their teeth. What about these?
Maybe, I mean, yeah, we could do a little fixing on that one, maybe.
Yeah, maybe her. We could do a little bit. Okay, let's do our best here. So let's go to our develop tab. Now, it looks like she might have, I'm sorry, I feel, yes, let's correct the teeth. You know, when you zoom in on anyone, including myself, you see like everything. And I feel like it's a little bit unfair to do that to people. You know what I mean? Just because like in everyday reaction, you just like see a person as a whole. But once you zoom super far into someone, I'm going to do that on his teeth just because, his teeth are already really good and I don't feel it's bad. I just zooming into people's, like, you know.
I know. I feel you. It's funny. Marsha said teeth seem to come into a room before you do. So I think that applies. He actually has something in his teeth. Look at that. He does.
And we didn't even notice that. See, you would have never. And now that's all we can look at. You know,
my God.
So I feel like, but we don't want to embarrass anyone. But his teeth look really good. So we'll just use these as an example on how to correct teeth color. So we've actually already worked on this photo a bunch, but we can go ahead and create a new mask. And I'm just going to go with my brush tool. So let's go with this brush tool here. For our overlay, I'm just going to go to color overlay here. I'm going to change my color to like a blue color just so we can see what we're doing. Okay. There we go. Let's pop that off. There we go. Okay, cool. So now that we have this is like our first mask, right? This is basically saying this is the area that we are going to affect first. But from this, I need to then only affect the teeth color within inside of this, right? So we can either try to subtract the lips color, or we can do an intersect with just the teeth. So let's try that. I'm going to click on the dot, 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 intersect with, and we're going to go to, let's try color range here. So I have my little eyedropper here. I'm going to go on the color range of the teeth. Here we go. Go on the color range of the teeth, and then I can adjust my little range right there. And then invert. Wait, yes. Sometimes this can be a little bit confusing, but yeah, that looks like it is affecting the teeth, right? It could be a little tough to tell. I know we're both like, oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
Let's try it. So let's turn that overlay off. So if we wanted to correct teeth color, usually I just will bring down saturation a little bit so we can see bringing down that saturation just a little bit. And then you can bring up your exposure just a little bit to make them a little bit brighter. Maybe bring your shadows up a little bit too. So let's just turn that off and on. There's our before and our after with that.
Yeah. And would you change the temperature at all to get rid of yellowness? Or that's what I've done, but I don't know if that's like the correct method.
No, that's a really good idea. Yeah, I just brought the temperature down a little bit, pushed it towards blue. That was a really good idea. Now let's go ahead and try to subtract this red color out of there too. So we've already did a select color range to the brush, but let's go ahead and try subtracting out a color range too. And then I'm just going to subtract out that color range, the red in the mouth. And now really, if I turn this off and on, now really it's just affecting those teeth. So that's a really good way to do it. And then I'm going to just go in here with a clone here. Let's hit Controller Command plus a couple times. We're going to make our brush nice and small. There we go. Just using my close bracket there. Super, super small. There we go. And then I have not gotten a hang of this cloning in Lightroom.
Me either.
I can't wait until they add the spot healing brush tool to Lightroom.
That would be such a game changer.
Right? All right. H for hide. Clock is ticking. All right, let's try to heal. This is like, honestly, Lightroom is so good that like just about the only thing I use Photoshop for, well, obviously compositing and retouching and like high-end stuff like that, we have to use Photoshop, right? But outside of that stuff, healing is one of the big things I use Photoshop for outside of Lightroom. Yeah. And all the more advanced stuff. But when we're just talking about simple editing, the healing stuff is just so helpful. All right, can I try to grab from a different tooth area there? Oh, there we go. Oh, hey.
Yeah.
That looks pretty good, right?
Good enough.
Good enough. All right.
Perfect.
We got a good enough, and I'm happy with that.
Yeah. So it looks great. When you zoom out, you can't tell at all.
There we go. That's the trick of editing. Just zoom out. It's fine.
Exactly.
Let's go to this mask here. I'm just going to turn that off and on so we can see. That actually did work pretty well, right? We were able to. So to recap, we used our brush tool to kind of just paint around the mouth. And then we did an intersect with the teeth color, and then a subtract with the like lips and the gums color. And that did a really great job just targeting the teeth. And then once the teeth were targeted, we brought our color temperature down a little bit. And I thank you for that suggestion. It worked really, really well. brought that towards blue a little bit. I brought our shadows up a little bit to take care of those dark spots. And then we brought our saturation down a little bit just to kind of bring the overall color level down.
Yeah, it looks really good.
It's a really good question. And thank you so much, everyone in the chat, for asking questions. It's really fun and, you know, gives us some new things to work on that we weren't necessarily planning on.
Yeah.
Cool, cool. All right, so we're going to move right here onto our next image. We've got a subject in silhouette here and looks really good, but I just want to add a little bit more light to the subject. So historically, this was kind of tough to do, but we're going to go ahead to our masking tools. Let's go ahead and click on masking. We're going to go to select subject. There we go. Now we have our show overlay. I'm just going to turn this back to the default red so we can see what it looks like. Pretty good, I gotta say, overall, except for right here on the floor, it kind of got confused a little bit, right? So are we going to use the add or subtract or the intersect?
Are you asking me?
I guess I'm just putting the question out there for anyone who wants to answer it.
Yeah, let us know in the chat. I'm going to say subtract.
Okay.
Question mark?
Subtract question mark. I know that was the first time I did that. I also said subtract question mark. It does take a little bit of thinking. So the way that I think about it is once your selection's here, if you want to remove something from it, then you subtract. If you want to add something to it, then you add. And if you want to make a further refined selection inside of the existing selection, that's when you do intersect.
Okay, so yeah, subtract, final answer, $1 million question.
Nice, and subtract it is. So subtract here, and then, you know, the easiest thing to do is just go right here to the brush. So we're gonna bring our feathering down, and then look at this. I'm just painting away this yoga mat here just to make sure this doesn't get affected. Nice. Yeah, I feel like once you get to know the system, it's like, okay, cool, I can do this, no problem. It's always like learning, like, okay, what do I use subtract? What do I use? Especially intersect. I feel like intersect is a tough one.
Yeah. And I honestly feel like our minds and hands start to get muscle memory when you're in Photoshop or Lightroom. Like, I feel like my hands know where to go before I mentally know where to go. If that makes sense.
100%. Yeah. And I'm so used to my workflow here with my keyboard shortcuts, and then I have my tablet on the right-hand side for when I'm working in Photoshop. And like sometimes I don't even know how to do something, but my hands will just do it anyway.
Yep, exactly.
It's so funny. Yeah, that muscle memory, there's really no way to fake that, right? That's just like time. It's a real thing.
Yeah, like when you asked how would I do something in Photoshop, I feel like my hand was starting to go through the motions.
I would do it like this, duh.
Yeah.
All right, let's go ahead and turn this show overlay back off. And then at this point, we're just going to bring our shadow levels up a little bit. All right, maybe bring our exposure level up a tiny bit there. I don't want to go too crazy with it. And sometimes if things are in too much in shadow, they'll be desaturated. So I always like to add like a little bit of saturation back as well. There we go. And that's looking pretty good. Let's just zoom out there. Maybe we could adjust our color temperature, make it a little bit warmer. There we go. So let's just turn that off and then back on. Or better yet, we'll just do the before and after because I feel like that's just such a good way to show this. So there we go. Like, this is such a common issue, right? We run into this all the time. Like, someone is backlit. We don't see much detail on them. Now we can just select them out really super quick and make all these adjustments on them. I feel like that just works so well. Now, I feel like, you know, especially my subject's face looks really good, but down here towards the feet, it looks a little bit weird, just because I think it should be a little bit darker down there. So we're just going to subtract out, and I'm going to go to a linear gradient, and then let's just pop this linear gradient. There we go. Subtract linear gradient, and we'll just pop this up. We'll just show that. There we go. And then there we go. Just kind of bring this up a little bit there. And if you guys missed it too, they totally changed the controls for the linear gradient and the radial gradient as well. So they actually work much better than they used to as well.
Good.
There we go. That's pretty cool. I think we're looking good. Now let's go ahead and I'm going to create another mask. We're going to go to a luminance range right now. We haven't really done this. So we're going to select out the lights. And this works really well. This works a lot like clipping masks do in Photoshop. All right, let's turn off the overlay and then we'll just bring in like a little bit of blue into the sky. Just like a tiny, tiny bit of color. There we go. All right, and there's the before and after. Really simple, right? Just like, you know, it was already a great photo in the before. It's not like we had to do that much, but you know, here in the after, I can more accurately see the subject. I get a better idea what I'm looking at, and we brought a little bit of color just into the, you know, into the sky in the background using that luminance range.
Yeah, that looks much better. And even just the little amount that you did on the feet helped so much to kind of make it look more realistic and blend it all together, because before that, it almost looked like she was composited in or something.
Yeah, exactly. Because we like it cut her out and then brightened just her. So
yeah,
definitely. I feel you there. So yeah, for those of you guys who missed that or just, you know, curious, wondering what we did there, I just did a subtract and then I did a linear gradient on the bottom and just click and drag that up. So it kind of just, it faded it away from the feet, but still kept it like a really nice natural transition there.
Love
it. Super cool. All right, well, we are just moving right along. We have our subject here. I want to move on to this next one here. This is one, I just want to try to brighten up our subject's eyes a little bit. So let's go to our develop module. Here we go. Turn on our before and after. Now we're going to just do a general vignette to start this off, because I think that, you know, those just always help so much to bring more attention to the subject. So let's go ahead and bring that in. I'm going to invert that, and then we're just going to bring our exposure down just a little bit. All right, there we go. I can move this around after the fact. Exposure, and I'm going to bring my saturation down a little bit too. Here we go. I'm going to pop on a new mask. We're going to go to a radial gradient, and then we're just going to bring this in. My subject, we're going to bring up our shadow levels just a little bit. There we go. And our exposure just a tiny bit as well. All right, already looking good. I want to give the scarf a little bit more definition. So we're just going to paint with the brush tool. Now this is something that'll be cool because we're going to intersect the brush tool with the luminance range. We haven't done this just yet. There we go. We'll feather that down and bring the flow down. All right, so I want like the highlights of this scarf to be a little bit more pronounced. This is basically some dodging and burning. So we've highlighted the scarf, and then we're going to do an intersect with, and then we're going to go to a luminance range. And then I'm going to click here and have it not include the shadows. This is just like blend if in Photoshop. Wow. And I can hold Alt or Option and check this out. I have a little preview of what's going to get included. So now you're going to see I can just affect the highlights of the scarf. So I started off with the brush tool. Now I'm just affecting the highlights of the scarf, not affecting the shadows. There we go. And over here, I can just bring my exposure up.
Oh, there man. We go.
Pretty amazing,
awesome.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
I just need to go back to my brush here and minus out over top of the hair. Just need to paint away the little minus there for the hair. And right here over top of her face. Yeah, basically we have like blend if in Lightroom now.
Oh, that's so cool.
Let's turn that off and on so we can see.
Wow.
Amazing, yeah? Let's just do a...
Oh, so great. It gives it like so much depth.
It's so fun to do this too. It's like really, once you get the hang of it, it's like, it's easier than it looks. You just gotta, gotta do a little programming in your head of this is what that does, but let's go ahead. We're going to paint with our brush tool now. Just going to paint over the eyes. And this is historically, we were able to do this in Lightroom before, right? I want to paint over my eyes. Maybe we're going to give it a little bit more clarity. Okay. We're going to bring up our shadows, bring up our contrast, and bring up our exposure, right? But historically, this is like as good as we could get it. But now I can go in here and I can say intersect this with a luminance range. And then I can say, don't be visible in the shadows, only be visible in the highlights. So I can take those highlights and I can further enhance them. Okay, let's just turn that off and on. Look at that. So wow. We're affecting only the highlights, and I can, keep going here. You can see those changes, like right with this luminance range, right? Before it just affected everything in those eyes. And here I can kind of fine tune it, which just makes it so much more dialed in. There we go. Cool. And then here I can just go back to my brush if I need to, and I just minus out like right here under those eyes. All right, and we're gonna do the same thing with those highlights, but you can see like I can just go back to this mask and you can see all those changes that I made. Maybe it's a little strong, so I just come in here and bring down my exposure just a little bit, right? Just get something that looks a little bit more natural, but still has that effect.
Yeah.
Let's create a new mask. We're gonna go with our brush tool now, and let's enhance the highlights on our subject's hair now. Maybe add a little bit more like warmth, color.
Yeah.
There we go. Make sure I got it all. Okay, so now that that's there, let's bring our color temperature a little bit warmer. There we go. Bring our exposure up. I think. There we go. And let's try to intersect that with a luminance range. And then we can just do this with the highlights. So I can just grab our highlights of the hair, and now it's only affecting those highlights. So you can see there.
It's such a game changer.
So cool, isn't it?
Yeah.
There we go. Turn that off and on. Subtle adjustments here. You don't have to go crazy with it, but all these things. And then I can come back to any of these tools at any time and then completely change. Completely change what they look like, Like this one, I want to bring the center point of this out a little bit. There we go. So all of these.
So let's say you are working on this for a client or something. Mm-hmm. Would you do all of your color adjustments like this in Lightroom and then take it into Photoshop to touch up her skin?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Definitely, especially if I had raw images to work with, because you're going to be working with 16 bits of color information in Lightroom when you're working raw. So yeah, my workflow, and tomorrow, we're going to go from Lightroom into Photoshop and back again for some of those adjustments. But from here, basically what I would do is I would just right click and go to edit in and then open as a smart object in Photoshop. And what a smart object is going to do, it's actually going to retain all of the information and all of these changes that we made here in Photoshop as well. And we'll go over that full workflow tomorrow.
Okay, cool. That actually kind of ties into a question that Marsha just asked. Can you save effects out to use on another image?
So you definitely can, especially when you have more broad effects. You can create presets out of those effects. And we're going to show you how to do that tomorrow as well. Presets work really well, especially for like exposure adjustments, color adjustments, and color grading and things like that. For individual effects, like, brightening up the eyes, or like we did with, kind of dodging the scarf a little bit, brightening up the highlights of the scarf. Those you wouldn't necessarily want to save into a preset because they're so specific to that individual photo. But in terms of like overall color and light adjustments, you can definitely change those and save those into presets and then use them on any one of your photos. And we're going to show you some amazing workflow options for doing that tomorrow, including how to create multiple variations of entire photo sets as well. So let's say you shot a wedding and you have 100 images. You can deliver those 100 images in full color, maybe in black and white as well, export those out really quickly and easily, and then deliver multiple sets of images to your clients. And that's something that is just so easy for you to do as an editor, and your clients see it as a huge value add. So I always recommend doing both of those versions if you can.
I'm excited to see that. Yeah, that's great advice. And I know they also used to have, I don't know if they still have this, something where in Develop, you could create the color changes that you needed, say for like brightening eyes or teeth or something, and then save it as a drop down. And then so you could click that, and then that would be your automatic teeth whitener.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
I'll have to look into that, or maybe you can teach me that because I've never done that before.
Yeah, maybe on the next photo, once you're in Develop, I'll kind of like see if I can remember where it is.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was. I remember I used to do that when I was doing a lot of retouching when I was interning, and it was super helpful.
That's so cool. Yeah. Okay, cool. Look at that. We're all learning together. Amazing.
I
know. Oh, it's so, so cool. All right, we're going to move down here to just this example. I really want to cover this one today. Nice and simple, but I just want to make this umbrella stand out a little bit more. So we're going to go to our develop module again. We can go right here to our adjustments, and we're going to go down to our color range. And then I can simply click here, right here on the color range. If I want to see what I'm actually doing, maybe just change the overlay color. There we go. I'm going to hit O for overlay. Let's go ahead and just zoom in here. And then I just want to bring the saturation of this up because I feel like, we have a very gray looking image. And then right here, we have this big red umbrella, but I feel like it could be more red to stand out. So we're just going to bring our saturation up with that a little bit, maybe bring our exposure up. There we go, just a little bit. And let's just zoom out. And then obviously, we want to talk about like cropping and stuff too. We've been focusing so much on these masking effects, which are amazing, but Lightroom has really great crop tools as well. There we go, that allow you to see like your composition as you crop. There we go. And obviously everyone is going to, have different crops in mind based on their own artistic ideas. I'm just doing a standard, there we go, a standard 3x3 grid. And with these grids, generally you want to try to place like the main subject material right here in an intersection between two of these grids. So here I've got it on the top right. It could be over here, here, and here. And then I'm also intersecting this line here in my background with this top line there as well. So just a couple little grids to kind of put that in there. There we go. Oops. There we go. Let's just crop that in just a little bit more. And then, the things that I really like about the crop tools here in Lightroom, you can see right now we just have a really nice crop. The crop tools are so great because we have, obviously we can get back to the original at any point in time where you see all this information, that's kind of maybe was not adding to our image. You can go back to it, but you can also just click right here on your crop tool. And if you want to, you can get back that information. You can change your crop rectangle at any time. So, maybe you want to try a couple different crops out. You can do that. There we go. Just do our subject generally right there. You can do a couple different crops and it's not going to destroy any of your information. It doesn't cut it off permanently. You can always go back and get that information back at any time. So I really like to do my cropping in Lightroom as well, as opposed to Photoshop, just because it's always available for me to recrop those images at any time.
Yeah, that's like such a helpful tip with cropping. And in Photoshop, you lose all that information.
Exactly. And here, like in Lightroom, again, I just go back, hit R for the crop tool, and then I've got all my crop history here on the left-hand side, and I can just go right back into it. So super, super fun. All right, well, we've got what, maybe 15 minutes left or so?
Yeah.
Fantastic. We're just gonna keep going. This image looking really good. I think this blue color on the background, that's a little bit distracting for me. So in this case, what we're gonna do is we're gonna just go right into our HSL color, like we talked about earlier, because I don't really need to restrict it to just a certain part of my image. I'm gonna take all of this blue color and change it just a little bit. Okay, so I'm gonna go to my saturation slider. I'm just gonna click here and bring my saturation down on that blue color. There we go. And I feel like already that's helped out quite a bit.
Definitely.
There we go. It's just a little bit distracting with that like super blue color there that was maybe even added in post-production. It's hard to know, you know, sometimes when we get these images. But there we go. That's already looking really good. Let's go ahead and do a radial gradient here. I want to just click and drag out. Nice purple color. We're going to invert that and then bring our exposure down just a little bit. Make sure to bring my feathering a little bit bigger. There we go. And let's go ahead and create another one. We're going to create a new one and go to our radial gradient once more. All right. Fantastic. It's looking really good. And let's go ahead and just bring our exposure up just a tiny bit. I love how even if you have the overlay on, as soon as you make your adjustments with these sliders, your overlay goes away so you can clearly see what you're doing. That really, really helps out. Fantastic. And do we have any questions from the chat as we kind of finishing up our broadcast here today?
Let's see. Nothing right now.
All right.
Doing good.
Doing good. Doing good. Well, I might want to take just a super quick bathroom break, if you don't mind.
Okay.
There we go. We can just see if we can pause this stream just a second here. Fantastic. All right, let's show you the before and after real quick here. And then I'm just gonna take a super quick bathroom break and we'll be back for more editing. There we go. Okay. Check out that before and after. And if anyone has any questions, leave them in the chat. We've got just a little bit of time left and we've got so many great images we can cover. So let me know anything you want to troubleshoot and we'll get it right after the break.
Yep, ditto to what Aaron said. See you in a few minutes. All right, we are back.
Let's do it. Jump
Ready
right
to take
in.
it off? Perfect.
So looking at this image, I want to bring just a little bit more color and warmth into the image as a whole, just like that blanket and everything too. It's already got this nice warmth in it. So let's just pop right into our basic adjustments. We're going to go to our color temperature, and I'm just going to warm up my image as a whole just a little bit. That's looking good there. I don't want it to go too much with my subject's skin. So let's go back and do some adjustments here. So we're going to pop into our masks again. I'm going to create a new mask, and we're just going to go to select subject. There we go. That works so well. I'm constantly amazed. Like, look at the hair cutout too. I'm just like, wow.
It's so good.
For those of us who've been using like Photoshop for a long time, this is, just thinking about how long that would have taken me, even just a couple of years ago. It's really nice. So let's go to the show overlay. I'm going to turn that back off, and I just want to bring my vibrance up a good bit. So let's go to our vibrance slider. I guess we just have our saturation slider. They'll have the vibrance slider in time, and then bring our hue just a little bit warmer.
I can't get over the before and after on this one. It looks so good.
It's crazy how much these like little changes make. Yeah,
I know. It's like, amazing.
And then I'm just going to subtract her face from that, because there we go. Her face, like, I wanted to color the blanket and stuff like that, but we didn't want so much color to be on the face. There we go. Turn those masks off and then back on. So you can see like all these subtle adjustments just really do add up. This before like overall looked pretty good, but her face was a little bit dark, and this blue was a little bit of a distracting color. So, when looking at these images, I think in my early days, I would try to edit a lot. I would try to like do more than what was needed, like try to do a lot of extremely creative work with my editing, where sometimes that's not required. Like sometimes it's like, okay, where's my subject's face? Is it too dark? Let's brighten it up. Is the background distracting? Let's fix some changes there. A couple subtle adjustments can go a long way. And, the more and more I edit, the more I try to make the images look more natural rather than make them look more edited. And that's style and preference, and everyone has their own, style that they want to develop. But when I'm looking at my images, in case you're thinking like, how does he know what to do? Or like, what is he thinking about when he makes these changes? It's all about bringing more attention to the subject, removing those distractions, and creating a little bit more like a naturalistic image, something a little bit closer to what you would actually see with your eyes. Try to get over some of the downfalls of cameras, which is like exposure issues and white balance issues, things like that.
That's great tips.
All right. Do we have any questions from the chat?
Nope.
All right. You guys are awesome. Let's go back to our develop module here. And I want to do a radial gradient. I want to give this like a nice warm glow coming from the lamp here.
Oh, yeah.
So we're going to go to a radial gradient again. Let's just click and drag out there. That purple color is hilarious. I'm digging it.
I know.
Super cool.
I love it.
Let's see. What do we want to do? Maybe bring our color temperature up a little bit warmer. Let's see. Maybe definitely bring our shadows up there as well. Fantastic. Looking really, really good. And maybe bring our exposure up just a little bit. Yeah. And then I'm going to do the same thing coming from this fire. So let's do a new mask, a radial gradient. I always use radial gradients when it comes to like light sources because they tend to just look the most natural.
Me too.
There we go. Look at us. Same.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. That's how you know it's good when when you're like, me too. It's like, oh yeah.
I know. It's always nice for the reassurance. It's like,
yeah.
I'm doing it.
Okay.
The right way.
Okay. Thank you.
So if you actually click on while you're in the bathroom, I checked on this to make sure if you click on custom right above where your mouse is,
okay,
the little drop down, click that.
Yes.
Now see, so those are all of the little changes that I was talking about, where see, if you look down, even down further, you have the iris, enhance, soften skin, and then you can save current settings as new preset. So it will, I believe it will make it like not a full preset, but just that the settings you have as a brush or a radial gradient that you can use again.
Oh, that's so cool. Warm
Yeah.
light. Okay, cool. Let's try it again. So I'm going to go to new mask. We'll go to radial gradient, warm light. There we go. And then, oh yeah, it's here in my user presets right down here, warm light. And then I can just do it again. And it's already going to know.
It should. Doesn't look like it saved the settings. Oh, wait.
I went to warm light edited. Let me just go to like regular warm light. Radial gradient. Okay. Oh yeah, I think it did it.
Yeah.
Warm light. Oh, and you can change it after the fact too.
Yeah.
That's real cool. So if I want to add another one, let's just go to another radial gradient. And this one, let's just say, is set to like soften skin or something like that. You're like, no, I don't want to do that. You can just go here and then change it back to warm light. Oh, look at that.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's so cool.
Isn't that cool? I remember using that in school for working on eyes and teeth and stuff.
That's brilliant. I had no idea. Whoa, thank you so much. That's a game changer.
I'm so excited that I taught you something. That's so cool.
Dude, totally. What a game changer. Oh, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
I just assumed that that was like the same as like other presets in Lightroom. It's tool specific presets.
Yep. Yeah. So, and then I think you can use it then, whether you're using the radial gradient or linear or
you can use
the
any
brush.
of them.
Yep.
Whoa. Super cool. Oh my God. Yeah, I could see how that would save a ton of time. Wow. Okay, let's make a new one here. I'm like super into this now.
Yes.
All right. So we're just going to call that darken, and then I'm going to add a new one. So we'll go to add a new mask, linear gradient, kind of come back here from the top. And then this one I'm going to call darken too. Whoa. That is super, super cool. Oh, you can expand and contract that too. I didn't even know.
Oh yeah, that kind of makes it look like like on the iPad.
Like on the iPad, yeah. It totally
I was like,
does.
what's the device called?
Yeah.
It's like iPhone, iPad, Mac, computer.
I know, right? Yeah. So many devices to choose from these days.
Yeah.
That's looking super cool already. I'm just going to add a general. So we'll just go to plus, radial gradient. There we go. Invert, and then boom, change that to darken. That's really nice because then you can add the same level of darkening to all these different filters in the same one.
Yeah. Yeah. And like if you were doing a series of photos, like a bunch of wedding pictures or something for a client, then you could keep your consistent editing throughout everything and not necessarily putting just a preset on it, but keeping those same settings, but adjusting where they actually go.
Oh, that's brilliant. Look at that.
I'm excited. I can't believe I taught you something.
Like you taught me a game changer. That's huge. Thank you so much.
Of course.
Wow. Wow. Just goes to show, man, these programs are so awesome, and every artist like learns things in a different way, and you know, we can all help each other out so much, you know. So like you know,
true.
Yeah, it's one of those things, like the more we share and the more we give, the more we get back in return. You know, it's such a cool, such a cool like way to build community and friendship and everything like that.
Yeah,
amazing.
I agree.
Look at all these masks that we made, you know?
So cool.
Really quick and easy. But there you can see, let's hit Shift Tab so you can see the before and after. Like, again, pretty subtle. But like here you can see in the before, like the lightest part, you know, was here, and then her face was a little bit dark and then didn't have so much of a focal point. I feel like we're building that focal point much better here. Let's see if we can build, let me get this thing to go away on the side. let's see if we can make like recover those highlights, like make those highlights not so bright. So I'm gonna start off with a brush, paint in just the area that we want. There we go. Let's get rid of this film strip on the bottom. Okay, so we're going to do that. And then we're going to intersect that. There we go. We're going to intersect that with a luminance range. Boom. That's our luminance range there. Right? Yeah. So I just want to affect the highlights there inside of the lamp. Okay, and then how do we do this?
I know, like, I have to remember.
Yeah, exactly. We might even be able to just fill that with a color, right? Just color it.
Yeah.
Just give it a color there, and then take our highlights, tone those way down. Yeah, that's looking pretty good.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I feel like that's good. And we could even maybe brighten it, but we're just about out of time. So
there we go. Let's just go ahead and turn
call
that
it a
off
day.
And call it a day. Look at that beautiful before and after.
Wow. Yeah, that looks really good. It definitely gives more of a mood to it. And like it has so much of a romantic feel now.
That's super fun. Anna, thank you so much. This has been an absolute blast. And thanks everyone for watching and asking us awesome questions.
Yeah. Thank you everyone for joining us today. We will be back tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time for part 2 with Aaron. And stick around for the Illustrator Daily Creative Challenge with Andrew Hock-Rattle, immediately followed by Branding and Identity with Whitney Kearney. Thank you so much, everyone. And we will see you tomorrow. Bye.